Hello there, Doug Boyle from Piedmont Aerosports in sunny North Carolina on a beautiful Saturday, but breezy. So we're inside the hangar doing some maintenance to the Creation Tanarg. And we ordered some replacement parts to at $500 to replace some of the bolts and so forth that are important fasteners to stay on top of. So the proverbial Jesus bolt has been replaced, and now we're replacing a couple of bolts for the compression strut and a couple of bolts for the mast retention. You know, the Creation Tanarg has got the split mast, and it's got two places for bolts where the two micro switches are to light up the dashboard light to tell you if it's not assembled completely as a safety device. And so those are the ones that we're replacing now. And the reason we're making a video is because we ran into a little bit of a dilemma when we received the parts. Everything was received as ordered and correctly, but not realizing that these little wing pieces have to be installed on top of the bolts. These Allen bolts have these neat little pieces that go on there like that, right there, and they don't just push on like that. And they're plastic, so we don't want to go whacking them with a hammer and stuff like that. Want to apply just even pressure. So the dilemma that presented itself was what type of even pressure, what type of tool to use. Does thumb and finger do it? No, not for me. Maybe if I were still 20 and working out in the weight room, I might have it. But so I'm looking down inside of there, and it's a pretty tight fit. So I'm going to consider that to be a press fit. And here is one that I just put together using this process to prove the concept, and didn't want to mislead anybody. And you notice that in doing this, one of my concerns was not damaging the threads or otherwise affecting the integrity of the bolt. After all, why replace them if all you're going to do is destroy them and be back to the same place you are? Question about their integrity. So this is what we want to end up with. We've got two compression bolts here for the compression strut, and we got two for the carriage retainer, carriage retainer. I hesitate to call this anything to do with the mast, even though it's welded to the mast, because it holds the split, the dual mast, if you will. Northwind calls it a dual mast. I suppose we could call it that. Anyway, doesn't make any difference what we call it as long as we call ourselves for dinner, right? So let's get on with it. The tool that I just happened upon after playing with this and looking around the shop and is actually a C-clamp that is not totally up to snuff, because the little swivel head right here apparently came off, probably when I was doing whatever I was doing, that deformed this little T-handle here that tightens it. But the rest of it's still good, and it's nice to know that I can designate this now as my Air Creation hardware plastic wing nut asphyxiation tool, for lack of a better description. But basically what we're doing is we are taking, I don't know that we have to take the wing nut off, but let's do it anyway, just to get it out of the way and have no interference. And even though it's got a hex head, I don't know if you can see this or not, but inside of the plastic there's not a hex to receive it, so it's pretty much predicated on a press fit. So we're going to put this to this, and there's some little ridges inside of there that keep that from going in right now, that once those are pressed over that and it expands, it should provide the fit. And we want to take it all the way down to being flush right there, because we don't want it to come off, don't want it to go in the propeller. So the way I rig this up with my new found tool here, and you'll notice that this little stud on this C-clamp with the missing swivel so nicely goes right onto the bolt without interfering with these with the threads. So it fits right in there, presses right against the bolt, and let me change fingers here, and you'll see on this side that this is going to back up this plastic piece here. Maybe that's a little bit better. And we can apply pressure by turning the screw. Alright. So I'm going to get this jigged up in here before I hold it in front of the camera. And I'm going to do my best to align it. It seems that aligning is a good idea so that you're pressing the plastic cap on exactly, or as close to exactly as possible, to the resting place. So I'm looking down all of this, trying to real closely align it. Then I'm going to look in this direction and try and align it that way as well. It looks like the bolt needs to go that way just a little bit. And it moves fairly easy because I don't have a bunch of tension on it, but I have enough to keep it from falling out of here. Okay, so basically I've got it aligned that way, and I have it aligned that way. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten this screw, and I'm going to watch this, we're going to watch this cap go into place. So I got about one turn on it now, and it's not wanting to go on, and I'm pretty certain that that's probably all I could do with my hands. Just trying to work with this barehanded. And I had an option of maybe using a pair of channel locks, using a hammer, some blocks of wood, a couple different things. So I've got it super tight now, so I'm going to check alignment one more time to make sure that I'm pushing it good. The alignment that way still looks fine. The alignment this way looks like it's starting to run. It still looks pretty good. Maybe the bolt's running uphill just a tad, but it shouldn't interfere with what we're trying to do here. And most importantly, in my opinion, is that this little ball screw here on the end of this stud on the end of this screw is round, and it looks like it's not pressing against any threads, but rather pressing against the center part of the bolt itself, which means no damage to the threads. So I'm going to try and tighten this a little bit more, and I see it taking it down a little bit. It still has a ways to go because, as I mentioned earlier, the bottom of this needs to be flush with the bottom of that. So let's try and get another turn, and we just heard a pop. And it's not quite flush yet. And the first pop that I heard on the first bolt before I started this video, I said, oh, there you go, you cracked the plastic. But I took it apart and looked at it, and no evidence of cracking. So I'm going to assume that that sound is those little, or are those little pieces on the inside that are either expanding, or maybe they're forcing, breaking, I don't know. But they're doing their job to latch on to this Allen head so that this bolt can be turned as a wing nut on both ends. So we're going to go down a little bit further until we're flush, and then we'll consider it finished. Okay, that's looking about flush there all the way around. So we'll take it out. We'll check the wing nut on the threads. There it is, finished product. Check this, make sure we don't have any cracks. Okay, no evidence of cracking. It's a pretty tough plastic. And now we're going to check the threads to make sure that we haven't done anything to the threads by using this tool. Okay, so that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. So there's two of them there. I'm going to remove this wing nut and put the safety ring on the bolt so that there's no chance of losing it. Okay, so there are the two bolts for the carriage, or the split mast, or the carriage retention, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, now we got two longer ones, two much longer ones here. These are for the compression strut, and essentially we're going to do them exactly the same way. So if all four of these, if the next 50% of this goes as the first 50%, then I'll be publishing this video. So if you see this video, you'll know that this is the way that I have found to do this, to install these plastic pieces on these bolt heads that isn't otherwise done for you. It's left to you to figure out how to do it. And I hope that this helps provide some sort of... Now, I have no idea where you're going to get a tool like this unless you cannibalize your 4-inch Harbor Freight, or wherever this may have come from, tool to do this job. And you may come up with another idea to do this, but unless you're in your 20s, I don't think you're going to be doing any pushing on this thing, and I don't know if you want to take a chance of putting this on a solid surface and then hitting this side right here with a hammer, or vice versa. If you want to put that on a solid surface and hit the top of this with a hammer. I mean, I suppose you could find a metric nut that goes on there. I wouldn't use the wing nut. You might turn the wing nut over if you wanted to use the wing nut. So you got that flat base right there. And just take a piece of wood and a hammer and whack it. But I found this to be a little bit more confidence inspiring than taking any additional chances. Alright, this is Doug Boyle from Piedmont Aerosports, bringing you a video on how to install plastic cover caps that simulate wing nuts for air creation replacement hardware. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.